All right, folks, welcome back to the Rich Mind Podcast. Today we're going to talk about true wealth. This would be a lot of opinions, right? Everybody's got their own opinion on what wealth really is. One thing that I'm noticing a lot as I'm trying to grow and expand my influence, right? As far as who I'm trying to listen to, who I'm trying to take influence from, really, right? I'm hearing a lot in a lot of different places. People are really starting to think differently about wealth. I think that through the last few years, let's say, people really were focusing on the money and the stuff, right? The cars, the houses, the status, the whatever. And I'm hearing from a lot of folks and listening to a lot of folks that are really starting to pivot their thoughts into what I would consider what true wealth is. And that's going to be the discussion that Greg and I have here today. So leading off with this true wealth idea, Greg, any thoughts on that to start with?
True wealth. Yeah, this is a great topic. And I agree. I think, you and I, we probably have some overlap in some podcasters that we listen to, but other times I'll send you one and you're like, oh, I've never heard of this guy. So
Yeah,
we
and I
definitely
love
have,
that. So yeah, let me just put that out there right now. I love it when you do that because it just there again expands who I'm listening to, expands so we kind of get into a rut, right? You're hearing the same thing over and over and over from the same people. People might be hearing or seeing the same things even with us, right? With you. But if you don't start listening to other people's ideas and other people's different experiences, yeah, it kind of gives you a different flavor of what life really could be. So thank you for sending those to me. And I try to do that back to you, right? If I hear of something or if I know of something that I thought would be right up your alley, I'll try to send that to you as well. So anyways, just want to take a second and thank you publicly for doing that. Cause yeah, it's been a lot of fun because this episode you did send me it was a great episode and it really dug into this, true wealth idea. So it was great.
yeah, and I think that's where, being open-minded kind of comes in as well. Cause I know I can send you something and you're not going to just delete it and be like, oh no, I don't want to listen to that. So kind of knowing your audience too of, is this person going to really listen to it? And whether or not they agree with it or not, that's up to the listener. But just opening those doors to different ideas, like you said, and that's exactly what we're talking about here with wealth. I know wealth can be defined a million different ways, just like success can be defined a million different ways. So today, like Randy talked about, money is great. Money is definitely one form of wealth. But I think as we're kind of getting into, I don't know, the mid decade here, right? I think people are kind of adjusting a little bit of, yes, money is important. Money is wealth, but there's a whole bunch of other things that are just as important, maybe even more important. And that's what we're going to dive into today.
So refer back to that health, wealth, and legacy for myself. So the idea or the thoughts go almost instantly to, once again, I've lost my parents at early ages. And that kind of goes back into that health piece for me and how important that is. I mean, you hear, at least I've heard multiple different places, I assume you have as well, that health is wealth. And without your health, nothing else matters. I know that my father, for example, would have given everything that he had to have a few more days or a few more years or whatever that was, because it took his life so quickly. I've shared that story in the past. I won't get into too much detail, but it was one of those things. He discovered he had cancer to the point where he had almost literally just 6 months to live. And he didn't even have time to get all of his wealth things, He didn't even have time to get his stuff as far as a will and all those pieces pulled together for himself because it happened so quickly. It just totally took him off guard. But the point is that true wealth for him, he had some things, but his true wealth was really focusing on, and he wished he would have focused on, I guarantee a little bit more, was his health. And that's really the point that I really wanted to start off with today, is that pillar of health and how important that is in terms of wealth. And I know that's a big sticking point for yourself too, Greg. I know it really is.
Yeah, health is, like you said, health is wealth. And, without your health, it doesn't really matter how much money you have, how many assets or Ferraris you have, or whatever it is, right? That Ferrari is not going to, make you feel better and heal you. So that's, coming from just my perspective anyway, but that's the way I define wealth. And, success is health is number one for me. And in the past, before I had any health issues, it was just something that was kind of, floating out there a little bit of, yeah, I'll maintain it, or I'll kind of read a little bit about it. But when you're facing a health issue, whether it's major or minor, it really turns your perspective of, wow, this is the most important thing in the world. And everything else kind of really falls underneath it. Again, my perspective, but yeah, health and wellness is number one on my list.
So you take it for granted almost until it's gone, or until it's slipping away to the point where you can't function or be. So I've taken that example with my parents, and I've really tried to do better for myself. Now, am I perfect? In perfect meaning in my own mind, right? It's not even a comparison thing. Am I perfect at it? No. Am I continuously trying to improve upon it? Yes. And that kind of goes into the conversation we had about what season are you in life in the previous episode. So the season that I've started to being in is really focusing more so on my health, excuse me. And that is because of this new being that's in my life, which is my grandson, Rowan. And I'm really starting to see how I need to physically be able to be with that young boy and teaching and show him, right, how to be, it's just so much fun. He's just all over the place. He crawls around on me like I'm a jungle gym, and I just love it. I get on the ground with him and I'm rolling around with him. But if I didn't have my health, if I wasn't focusing on my health to the extent that I do, I would not be able to do those things. It's unfortunate when we're out and about, right? You'll see folks that might be struggling with their health. For example, my father, like I said, I'll go back to him and I'll use him as the example. He was almost 65. So in terms of age, he really wasn't that old. He physically looked well. Like he wasn't overweight per se, right? He wasn't, he was still mobile. He was still doing things, still working, but somehow, things didn't go well from within, right? His own body was starting to eat itself, basically, with the cancer that he had right at that moment. But it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to then focus earlier on in his life to try to keep that from happening, which took him away from not only from my family, but I think of him even now, he would be probably, I think if I did the math, he'd probably be 75 now, because I think it's been 10 years past, but he'd be able to see his great grandson. And I just think about that even for myself, and how I want to see not only my great grandson, but I want to see my great great grandson. That's kind of the goal I have for myself. They talk about I listen to different longevity podcasts as well. And they talk about 120 years is going to almost start to become the norm if you're taking care of yourself in these, middle phases of life, I guess, maybe. And we can maybe talk about some specifics that we might be doing for ourselves. I don't want to proclaim to be an expert, because I'm not. I've got some different results based on the things that I've tried. But at the same time, with that focus and understanding that my health is so important for me, for my family, trying to get to that 120. I mean, that's kind of the goal that I've got in my mind. I can't imagine life being that old, but not being 120 and not being able to move, but being still active, right? Still a mind that's working well, having the ability to make decisions, to be creative. Who knows? Might be still having the Rich Mind podcast. What is that? 70 years from now? Who knows? Maybe it'd be a different version by then, Greg, if you and I are going on at 120. But that's kind of the whole idea. Anyways, health is just such an important part. I just definitely want people to think and realize that take a focus on that. I know the bank account. I know the money. I know the stuff. I know the status. Trust me, I want some of those things as well. But without the health, I'm telling you folks, I've seen it firsthand. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, which is unfortunate. So hopefully we'll, through this conversation today, maybe wake some people up to where they're at, right? What season are they in? Where goals do they want to achieve? And take some inspired action and go to work and make it real. That's really the goal and hope for the podcast here today.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you for sharing that story. That kind of leads into the next one that I was going to talk about, which is growth, and growth as it relates to, self-improvement or personal development, or however you want to phrase it, which I know obviously that's why we're here. We talk about this on the podcast. We talk about it offline. That's how we kind of met, and that's what our relationship is based on, basically. So yeah, what are your thoughts on, growth as it's relating to, success and wealth and that kind of thing?
So another saying that I hear a lot, right, that's being thrown around, at least in the circles that I listen to, is that if you're not growing, you're dying. That's kind of it sounds a little harsh, And I don't take that as like 100% accurate, meaning I don't think that sometimes you've got to take a pause. We talked about the seasons last time, right? Sometimes you're in a winter season that you just need to kind of maintain. It's like you don't necessarily need to make leaps and bounds forward. It's just that you're trying to fight back from not going backwards, I guess, right? So I just don't like to use the word dying in that phrase, right? So if you're not growing, maybe you're not. Any thoughts on that? What is it?
Maybe you're diminishing.
Okay. I like that a little bit better, right?
As quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And once again, I don't know if that's because of the experience that I've had watching close loved ones pass, that I just don't like using that word in that phrase. I understand the concept and I understand the idea, but the growth, I agree 100%. As I've gone down my own personal development journey, I've realized that the further you go, there's still more to do. It's like there is no end destination. You can still always become better. We've talked about triggers and things like that in the past, the winning within. I still have those situations arise in my life, maybe not as often and maybe not as severe, but they don't ever stop. And realizing that growth piece, I've got to grow into this person that I want to be. So this grandfather that I want to be, or great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather that I want to be, I have to grow into that. It's not a destination. I'm just not going to just show up one day on a calendar 70 years from now and say, well, here I am. It's that growth getting there is the most important piece. And that's what I think about when you talk about that growth as far as in terms of wealth and how important it is.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's perfect, actually, to kind of lead me into the next one, which is, at least on my list, it's personal fulfillment. And I actually heard a good take on this the other day. I forget what podcast it was on. There's a lot of talk about, finding the job that is fulfillment for you, or the career or that path. But there was an example that the host was explaining, that a person who basically works in like a factory, and, they don't hate their job, but they don't love their job, right? It's maybe like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 or a 5 or 6. But their purpose, their fulfillment is they're bringing home money to feed their family and house their family. And that's their fulfillment. So the job doesn't fulfill them, but what the job gives them, that ability to take care of their family, to maybe grow their family, that is the ultimate. That's like the overarching piece of that fulfillment. Because I think there is a lot of talk these days of, quit your job if you hate it, go find something that you love and turn it into a business, which can be good advice, but it's not good advice for everybody.
Right.
So that one example of that factory worker made me think of, like, well, yeah, how did I view that in the past? How can I view that now as maybe I don't need that career that is 100% fulfillment. Maybe it's what that career allows me to do on the outside with my family, or give back, or travel, or whatever that is. So it was a really interesting example, and it kind of turned it, the initial definition I had in my head, kind of a 180, which was really cool to think about. Any thoughts on personal fulfillment as it relates to success?
So many things going off in my mind as you're speaking. And I love that, because that's the whole point of the conversation back and forth. So to me, it just all goes back to that, having the outcome, the goal, as I mentioned, like the 120 years. It's like, what does that mean to me? What will that do for this legacy for myself? To me, it has to be bigger than yourself. So you might not necessarily enjoy doing the growing process. Isn't always fun. Let's just put it that way, right? We talked about the seasons in the last episode. Sometimes you're going through the season of summer and you're just having to grind. You're just having to just keep doing the mundane things to get to this end result that you're looking for. But if you don't have that vision of this thing that's bigger than yourself. So for myself, like I said, and I keep bringing this up as the examples, right? So it's those future generations of the Wilsons. And obviously they'll have different names because of girls and that kind of stuff. But that lineage of me, I want to then give them. That's my fulfillment. That's why I enjoy doing what I do. That's why I try to articulate the thoughts and ideas that are going on in my mind, because it's like I'm thinking beyond myself, and that becomes fulfillment for me. Like you said, the gentleman, the example you said at the factory worker, if his fulfillment is supplying his family with the needed resources to grow and become a different version of themselves, right? It's like, once again, he's thinking beyond himself. He's probably even thinking beyond his immediate family. It could be his community. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways and things that folks can do to bring that fulfillment piece into their own life. And once again, it becomes, you just take it away from you. It's not that it's not about you, because it kind of is, because you're still trying to achieve yourself, but the driving force becomes bigger than yourself. And when you find what that is, work isn't work anymore. Like I said, it's still a grind. You're still going to have days when you don't feel like doing it. But the overarching idea and the overarching creativity and the processes and the systems, and it just makes it more enjoyable, because you know that the outcome, the harvest in the fall season, is going to be so much more. And when you start to see how that's going to become and how that's going to be, it just brings a smile to my face, right? When I start to see my kids thrive in their relationships, as Rowan continues to grow and get bigger, I look forward to seeing him. If he's going to know what I know now, what I've had to teach myself and learn on my own, he's going to know, because I'm going to teach him, right? Or I'm going to show him. I'm at least going to expose him to different ideas, different thoughts. And so then I take that forward. I think of, wow, where would I be today at 50 if I knew back when I was 1 or 2? I mean, so just think about it like in school age years, right? If I knew back in middle school, high school, what I know now, where would I be today? Once again, it kind of just brings that fulfillment piece right back in. I told you my mind was racing, so hopefully that didn't ramble on too long, Greg. But yeah, that was, I love that too. That is true wealth, is that fulfillment piece. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. And I think I have 2 more. Hopefully we have time for 2 more, but
We've got time, man. We'll make time, because this is a fun conversation. Let's go.
All right, perfect. So yes, the next one on my list is mindset and attitude, which I know you're going to have a field day with.
So no, okay. I want you to start. I'm going to flip it right back on you. I hear you, because you're right, because I'm going crazy with this one here today. I feel like I'm hogging the microphone. So folks, if you're tired of listening to me, I apologize. It's going to be Greg's turn. So mindset and what did you say? Attitude. You're right. I've got a lot to say about that as well, but I'm going to flip it back on you. What do you think about that in terms of wealth for yourself? Any examples for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've only been in or studying personal development for about 5 or 6 years now. So I can definitely see the difference between before and after. But like you said, it's work, right? Mindset and attitude and everything that we do every day is the work that we put in. But I think that's one of the biggest pillars of true wealth is, your mindset and your attitude, because you can't escape your mindset and your attitude and your thoughts and everything. So when you're in a bad mood, it just creates bad actions and more bad moods and more bad actions. But if you flip that around, you're in a positive state, you're in a good mindset, to me, that's true wealth. And one source that I would recommend, there's a book by Oprah. It's called Build the Life You Want, and really great book. She actually co-wrote it with I think he's like a social scientist, and he basically studies like happiness. So that's kind of where I was kind of leading with this conversation of, attitude and mindset. But my ultimate goal, because sometimes I've realized, well, I ask myself, am I truly happy? Am I happy today? Am I happy with this part of my life? And, sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, right? There's always work to be done. But reading that book really drove that home of, I think that's the truest form of wealth for me is I just want to be happy, right? I don't want to be,
yes,
that's it. And whatever drives that, that's up to me to decide, whether it's money or friendships or family or community and whatever ratios those break down to. But that's my true wealth, is determining what makes me happy and what feeds into that. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from. What are your thoughts on what I said or the topic in general?
Yeah, love that. So Earl Nightingale, talked about Earl Nightingale a lot, and I've got his audio CD package here, Lead the Field. I would highly recommend folks go out there and grab that. His very first teaching that he teaches on Lead the Field, sorry to be a little bit of a spoiler alert here, but is the magic word. And when I first heard that, I'll never forget the very first time I was going through that. And I didn't really read like what it was. I was so excited. I just kind of plugged it in the CD into the car and I just started playing it. And he talked about the magic word. And that magic word was attitude. And attitude is the magic word. Those were like the first few things he said right off the bat. And it took me a while to wrap my head around what he was even meaning by that. And you articulated what you shared there was fantastic. So your attitude is your thoughts. It's your mindset, like you said, right? It's your beliefs. It's the stories that you're telling yourself. It's how you show up in different situations. When you're driving, do you find yourself getting in road rage situations, right? It's having control of your mental back and forth, right? The dialogue, the negativity, that negative self-talk, the negative self-belief. All of that is kind of packaged in this attitude. And I loved how you said that. We can choose what attitude we want to have. We can choose how we want to show up. We can choose to either respond or to react to whatever situation is going on around us. As we begin to focus on winning within and not letting the outside circumstances of our life control who we are, which becomes part of that mindset piece, then we can change our attitude. And when we change our attitude, we can then start to see different situations around us. When I first discovered this, I was in my retail job. I was a retail store manager for many years. I just had a bad attitude. I was just always negative. It's not that I was mean towards people. So that's the difference. I think that you'll think that that's being mean, because I was not mean. I just had a negative attitude. I was always the pessimistic one. I was always, however else you want to put it, right? The glass is half empty versus half full, those kinds of thoughts. And with that, I was always attracting negative things into my life, right? Whether it was relationships, whether it was jobs themselves. So I would move from store to store, and it seemed like I kept getting worse and worse stores or worse and worse employees. And what I had to realize, or what Earl helped me realize, was my attitude. It was how I was showing up. It was how I was presenting myself. I was attracting those things to myself based on this mindset and attitude. So yeah, maybe put a pin in that, Greg, as far as maybe that's a whole nother episode in and of itself, because we can go down that rabbit trail and I can probably talk the entire time like I'm doing today, and hopefully I won't in the future. But the point is that understanding that was such a huge piece of my beginning stages of my personal development, to realize that I was in control of that attitude. And when I changed that attitude, my outside circumstances began to change. And it was a slow process, but it actually happened quicker than I ever would have imagined. That's where I'm not who I was. This was 15 years ago. I'm just kind of throwing, I don't remember exactly, but it was a long time ago. And I've become a different human, who I am, how I show up to my family, how I show up to whatever work environment that I have, how I show up here on the podcast, stems back to that first magic word, attitude. And I love that. So I want to put something back on you as far as mindset. I think a lot of times folks will throw that term around or throw that word around, right? Mindset. But I'm curious, because I don't know if we've had this discussion or not, Greg, but when you hear that word, what does that mean to you? What is mindset to you in terms of the discussion that we're having today?
So for me, mindset means, it's a compound word, right? Mind and set, right? Which they put together. So, and I heard this, I think, recently, because before I think I kind of bunched it together with personal development, mindset, but I kind of realized like personal development is, to me, like actionable because you're developing, right? Like, at least in my mind. And then mindset was more of how you control your thoughts, what you let in, what you don't let in. And what I heard recently was it should be set, right? Because it's a mind set. It's not mind fluctuation where you go back and forth, even though it's, easier said than done. We all have our...
It is fluid, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a rock. It's not set in stone, right?
Right.
I like how you said that.
Yeah, but I think, it's probably on the spectrum there of, fluid to being 100% rock or stone. And I think the more you can get to having it be more of that rock or stone, you're, solidifying, as long as it's a positive mindset and you're gearing towards that rock, you're solidifying yourself to, set up, have a good day. Because your mindset is 80% out of that 100% spectrum, where 80% is good thoughts and good actions and good feelings, and maybe 20%, kind of slip in and then you kick them back out. So that's kind of what mindset means to me anyway. What about your thoughts on what mindset is?
So I haven't really, that was great for me once again. So the back and forth, right? That's where we learn from each other. I had not really thought about personal development being more of the action phase, and then the mindset being like your internal dialogue. I hadn't really thought of it that way. And did I hear that correctly? That's how you described it? Okay. I just wanted to, hear that that's what I heard, make sure that I heard that. So that's fascinating to me because I agree with that. I agree completely with that. And the best part about that, even with the mindset being fluid, but more set, like you said, right? That's directly in the word itself, the mindset, is that you can choose your mindset. So it's even waking up every day. That's what I started to do. I just started to wake up grateful for the smallest things. I mean, it can be the sunshine. It can be the birds outside. It can be, if you have an animal, it can be your pet. It can be your spouse or a friend. It can be this conversation that we're having today. It can be you, the listener. I'm grateful for you, the listener. So that's where, for me, that's where the big shift came for me, is that I stopped focusing on the negative pieces that were going on in my life. And I really started to shift my mindset into the positive things that were around me all the time. So that's the thing. It's like they're there no matter what. So it's, if you're thinking that life is terrible and the sunshine, I mean, it's like, if you're not thinking about those things in a positive way, it's still going on around you. You're just not seeing them the way that I'm seeing them, and vice versa. Your negative things that you're projecting onto yourself and you're thinking for yourself. Yes, I'm not saying that they aren't happening, because they're happening to me too. I have the same self-doubts. I have the same fears. I have the same insecurities. I have the same negative self-talk. I get triggered just as much as you do. It's just the way I look at them based on this work, like you said, the work in the personal development to shift through this fluid activity of my mindset has set me up for a better life, a better way of being, a better way of showing up for my family, for my friends, for my listeners of the Rich Mind podcast, for you, Greg, for everybody. And that's been the biggest change for me. So yeah, I appreciate that. I never really put the two and two together as far as like the personal development piece is more of the physical activity of what you're trying to do, right? What you're trying to become. And the physical activity could be journaling. We talk about journaling a lot on this episode. It can be taking walks and just being exposed to nature. It can be what you're consuming as far as your intake, water intake, or we talk about health and the food that you're eating and just paying attention to those things. That's a lot of the personal development side. But then the mindset, as far as the gratitude, really being grateful. Just go around today and be grateful. Express gratitude. Thank yourself. And this is going on in your mind. You can do it out loud. I mean, I'm thanking you right now for being here with us today. Greg, I appreciate you being here with us today too, right? I mean, this is where it's fun. But you can really start to see things in a gratitude way, and it really just shifts that mindset. You start to see some positive things relatively quickly. That was what the big aha moment was for me, was that, wow, he was right. It was like, Earl was right. And so then it's like, it spurred me to go on further for this work in this personal development, this journey that I'm on. And it's been a lot of fun. So hopefully I answered your question there, but yeah, I like that back and forth, trying to determine what mindset really is. Cause I think that just is a generic term that gets thrown around a lot, but I love how you put that. That was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, just like anything in the personal development world, I don't think there's usually 100% definition that is correct. It's more of, like you said, like your perspective, the perspective that you choose based on an event. If an event happens, whatever happened in that event is true, but you can look at it as a positive way. I can look at it as a negative way, and we're going to have two very different experiences. And it's just going to, put me down a rabbit hole and put you in a better mood. So yeah, I think that's definitely a topic for another time here with perspective and that kind of thing.
Isn't that funny? I mean, we keep having these conversations. We're like, okay, yeah, remember that. We're going to talk about that again in the future, right? We're coming up with our own episodes as we keep going along here, because this journey is so vast and it's fun. Mm-hmm. I get excited about it. I mean, I'm just excited talking about it, what we're having the conversation here today. It just becomes fun when you become an active participant in your life, right? When you're trying to become a better version of yourself, when you make it bigger than yourself, this legacy piece, whatever that means to you, it just really starts to be fun. Life isn't as bad as the media would like for you to believe. Now, are there bad things going on? Of course. all the time. And if you get sucked down those rabbit trails, that's exactly where you're going to be. Have you ever heard so the thought that came to my mind is that life is happening for you versus to you. Have you heard? Yeah. That's kind of where my mind goes even with this discussion here. Is just, once again, that's a mindset shift. It's just flipping that thought that it's happening for you versus to you. And if you can really sit with that for a little bit, even just right after this episode today, I think that you can start to see things for what they are. There are a lot of beautiful things going on in this world today, and you being one of them. But you have to make that change. You have to make that choice with your personal development through your mindset. And who knows where you'll be in the future. And that's where it's super exciting. It's super fun. And that's what I want to encourage you to think about moving forward here today. So did you have one more, Greg? I thought you said you had one more thought that we wanted to share as far as this wealth piece. This has been so much fun. Like we're going long on this episode here, but I'm good with it if you are. If you've got time for one more, let's go for it.
Yeah, definitely. The last one, and there's plenty more than
we
just
this isn't
about,
it, right?
But we're just kind of cherry picking the ones,
We are.
you know. But yeah, the last one in my mind is contribution and service. And to me, you know, that's the impact that we have on others, the importance of giving back, serving others, and just really making a positive influence in the lives of those around you. And that could be with money, but it can be more, I'm kind of coming from the angle more of relationships and, you know, being there for them, not expecting them to give back to you, just honestly giving, you know, a resource or information or whatever they're in need of. So yeah, contribution and service. What are your thoughts on that one, Randy?
Love that one too, man. So many things are rushing through my mind. I will try to keep this brief because, like I said, this episode is going to be like an epic long episode that we've done so far. So here's an example that so my thought originally, or, you know, right away goes to kind of how I've tried to be within myself. So let me see if I can't share a quick story or even just an example of how people can take that, right? Contribution to other people. It can be so I want to make it super simple. It doesn't have to be, like you said, you don't have to give money. It's like you hear a lot of times about philanthropy and these wealthy individuals, how they're giving all their riches away and they're donating this and they're donating that. It doesn't have to be that elaborate. Can we strive for that? 100%. If that is what makes your juices flow and you enjoy that kind of thing, fantastic. Go for it. But here's something to keep it super simple. This is something that I did that it's made a huge impact in my life. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are too, Greg. Was that when you're out and about, just in your everyday activities, I don't care if it's at work, I don't care if you're just shopping, I don't care where you're at. You could be taking a walk around your neighborhood. Give people some attention. Look people in the eye. Tell them hello. Be generous with your time. Be generous with your gratitude. Express to them how grateful that you are that you're in their presence, right? It's like so many times, and even it happens a lot, right? You'll be out shopping and a lot of people are just walking around with their heads down, right? Walking down with their heads down. They don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to see anybody. They don't want to make eye contact. And I make a point to say hello to as many people as I possibly can. Now this, I will tell you, this was so pre my personal development. I was not that way at all. I was always keeping my head down, right? I didn't want to interact with anybody. I didn't want to do any of that. But what I've done is I've tried to express and get more of who I'm trying to be. It's amazing when you start to have a conversation with someone. It's a complete stranger, right? And it doesn't have to be a deep, elaborate conversation, but it can just be a friendly conversation about what's going on that day, or just exchanging hellos, or how is it going today? When somebody asks you, how's it going today? And your response is just fine. What does that even, try to be a little bit more than that. Just push yourself outside that comfort zone. This is where, to me, the personal development comes in. It's that work of understanding how you can give contribution as simple as just a greeting, eye contact, attention. You can pay attention to someone. Give them your full attention. Put your phone down. Mm-hmm. Put your phone down, turn it off, and give them your full attention. You'll be surprised if you do that and you make that a consistent habit. If you make that a habit, how quickly, once again, your environment's going to change. I have an example of a local store here in Indianapolis that my wife and I frequent probably once a week. We use the self-checkout, and there's a lady that's always in there. She's always in there. I don't know her. She doesn't know us. But we always have a conversation with this lady, and it's just basic stuff. It's, how are you doing? How was your week? Just basic things. She gave us a Christmas card this year. She had one specifically made. She doesn't even know our name. She doesn't know who we are. But it was fun because it's like, wow. It's like you feel like you're building a relationship with somebody that who knows where that goes, right? She spent her time she physically made it. She didn't go out and buy it. She's crafty, right? She made this card and gave it to us for Christmas. She goes, I knew I would see you guys and I was so excited. Here, I've got this for you. And it's like, wow, I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. It's like, wow, you can really have a contribution to other people and it can be super simple. Anyways, hopefully I've shared that enough as far as maybe people will realize how important it is. Just how you show up, how you are is so super important. It doesn't have to always be about the money and the stuff.
I think you actually tied in the last one that we spoke about with mindset and attitude, right? Because if you didn't have that positive mindset and attitude, your head would have been down. You wouldn't have spoken to that woman.
No, not at all.
Right?
Just a few years ago, I wouldn't have said anything. And now this has been going on for a few months, right? It's multiple conversations, but the initial conversation never would have happened. Right. I know for sure that it wouldn't have, because that's not who I was. I've had to push myself to become that person that is not afraid to just have conversations with nice people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that allowed you to, like we were talking about, make a positive difference in her life, right? Because I'm sure when she gives a card out, that gives her, elation and joy. And
she's contributing back into our life, right? Which goes along exactly what we said as far as how that is wealth.
And maybe she's on a podcast talking about how she gave a card to you and your wife and everything. You never know. So
yeah, you never know. Maybe she's out there podcasting and I just don't even know it, talking about her crafts, which maybe that's what I should suggest that she does, right?
There you go. Next conversation.
The card that she made was fantastic. It was so cool. It's almost like one of those pop-up cards, right? I mean, it was super cool. For her to spend that much time on something like that for us was a lot of fun. So, man, this has been a great conversation. Hopefully people will find this super valuable. The idea of wealth, folks, there are different ways, different forms of wealth that you really just have to shift your mindset. We talked about that a lot today. Shift your mindset of what wealth really truly is. Now, we are trying to accomplish and gain things. Of course, I have goals. I have, my 69 Camaro, my dream car. It's going to cost me quite a bit of money to get my dream car, to get it exactly the way I want it. So yes, I'm trying to achieve things and status and money to do those things as well. But that's not my driving force. My driving force is trying to add value. I know that if I add value to enough people, that I will then begin to take back in some resources then to go out and purchase this car that I'm looking for. And it just try to do it as many times as you possibly can in the most simple ways. That's been the fun part for me. It really doesn't have to be difficult at all. It's just a shift in that mindset, which makes it so much fun. Any more closing thoughts, Greg, before we wrap this one up and we give the teaser out for the next one? Because I think the next one's going to be a lot of fun. The conversation we're going to have about it too. It's going to be a lot of fun. Any more thoughts before we wrap this one up today?
No, I mean, this has been, like you said, a great conversation. Like we said, there are a lot of different, characteristics or areas that you can apply this to. We kind of pulled out, 4 or 5 of them maybe. So I'm sure we'll dive into some other ones in future episodes. But no, this is a great conversation. Yeah, just appreciate it.
Appreciate it, folks. Appreciate you being here today. Reach out to Greg and I, info@richmind.co. Give us some feedback. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you have any questions about any of the things that we're discussing, if you have feedback and you want to have pushback on the things that we're talking about, we'd love to hear that as well, right? We're here to grow. Maybe you have some resources that you can share with us that would help us grow and become even better than who we are right now. We would love to hear and see those things as well. We'll be here to try to help you as much as we possibly can. That's the whole idea behind us showing up and trying to add as much value into your life as we possibly can, trying to give back to you. But yeah, reach out to us, info@richmind.co. We would greatly appreciate that. If you wouldn't mind sharing this with your family and friends, we'd greatly appreciate that as well. Head out to your podcast platform of choice and leave us a review. Hopefully a positive one would be nice, but if it's not, we understand. We're not fit for everybody. We get that. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple seconds to do that, that would be much appreciated as well. So I kind of threw it out there. The next episode, we're going to go into identity and what identity really truly is. We've kind of touched about it here with the mindset, and we've kind of danced around it a lot. But the idea between identity and who do you identify as being? My past, I identified as being kind of a loner, negative, we've got some other examples as well about identity and how you will never really break out of who you want to become unless you identify what this identity is and then go to work to change it. And that's kind of the discussion that I want to have in this next episode. Greg's got some great examples. He just attended a virtual conference. We'll talk about that as well. He had some great notes he was sharing with me before we hit record here today. That, yeah, it's going to be a super powerful episode. So we encourage you to join us back in the next one. So go out there, have a fantastic day. We appreciate your time and attention as always, and we'll look forward to coming back talking about identity in the next episode. We'll talk to you very soon. Until then, bye now.